I had been saving for 2 years to treat my family to a luxury Hawaiian vacation. As a senior IT professional, I had the means but never the time to connect with them. $15,000 for a 5-star resort, 8 days of paradise for 6 people. I was hopeful this would finally bring us closer. But 3 days in, I noticed something strange. My family was doing activities without me making plans I was not included in. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments and hit that subscribe button before I tell you how I turned the tables on my ungrateful family. Life before planning this vacation was comfortable but lonely. As a senior developer at a major software company in Seattle, I was making good money but working 60 to 70 hours each week. My apartment downtown was nice but felt empty most of the time. I lived alone with my thoughts and my code, rarely seeing my family more than 3 or 4 times a year during major holidays. I had always been labeled the successful one in my family, the one who made it big in tech, the one with the fancy job title and the healthy bank account. But success came with isolation. While my colleagues respected me and my boss valued my contributions, I would often come home to an empty apartment, order takeout for one, and fall asleep to the glow of my laptop screen. Something was missing, and that something was connection. Despite the distance, I still sent money whenever my family needed help. When my sister Ashley needed a down payment for her car, I transferred the funds without hesitation. When my parents wanted to renovate their kitchen, I covered half the expenses. When my brother Mark lost his job temporarily, I paid his mortgage for 3 months. I never complained or expected anything in return. This was what family did for each other, right? My relationship with each family member was complicated. Ashley, my younger sister, was 29 and married to Frank, 32, who worked in construction. They would call me every few weeks, always starting with small talk, before eventually working up to whatever financial need they had at the moment. Ashley would say things like, "Jesus, you know we think about you all the time," or "We miss you so much," but those sentiments only seemed to surface when they needed something. Still, I cherished those calls, even if they were motivated by necessity rather than genuine connection. My older brother Mark, 38, and his wife Julia, 36, were different. They were financially stable with good corporate jobs, but they were incredibly stingy with both money and affection. Mark had always been competitive with me, constantly comparing our careers, homes, and lifestyles. Whenever we got together, he would subtly brag about his latest promotion or bonus, while simultaneously making comments about how I was wasting my money on unnecessary things. The fact that I earned more than him was a constant source of tension. My parents, both in their 60s and semi-retired, had always shown favoritism toward my siblings. Growing up, Mark was the athletic star. Ashley was the charming social butterfly, and I was just the quiet kid who was good with computers. Now that we were adults, that dynamic remained largely unchanged, except I had become what my father jokingly referred to as the family ATM. They were proud of my success, but seemed more interested in the financial benefits it provided them than in my actual well-being or happiness. I had fallen into a pattern of trying to buy affection through generosity. Birthday gifts became more extravagant each year. Holiday checks grew larger. I would offer to pay for dinners, vacations, and repairs without being asked. Deep down, I knew what I was doing, but I could not stop. The brief moments of gratitude I received in return were addictive, even if they were shallow and fleeting. The idea for the Hawaii vacation came to me one night while I was scrolling through videos online. Someone had posted footage of crystal-clear waters, palm trees swaying in the breeze, and families laughing together on pristine beaches. It hit me all at once. This was what I needed, what we all needed. A chance to reconnect away from our daily routines and stresses. I would take my entire family to Hawaii, sparing no expense to create the perfect setting for us to become close again. The saving process was not difficult given my salary, but it did require some sacrifices. I cut back on ordering food delivery, started brewing coffee at home instead of buying it at fancy cafes, and postponed buying the new car I had been eyeing. I even took on a few side projects to accelerate the savings. Every extra dollar went into what I called my family fund. For 2 years, I watched that number grow, imagining the memories we would create together. When I finally announced my plan to the family, their reaction seemed genuinely enthusiastic. My phone blew up with thankful text messages. My parents called me in tears, saying how thoughtful their son was. Mark sent me a rare complimentary email, admitting he was impressed by my generosity. Ashley created a family group chat titled Hawaii Dreams, where everyone started sharing ideas and expectations. I spent 3 months researching the perfect resort. It had to have something for everyone. A golf course for my father, spa services for my mother and Julia, beach activities for Ashley and Frank, and enough technology and connectivity for me to occasionally check in on work emergencies. I finally settled on a luxurious 5-star property on Maui with private beach, access, multiple infinity pools, and gourmet restaurants. I booked 3 ocean view suites for my family members and a standard room for myself. The total came to just over $15,000, not including airfare and activities. As the trip drew closer, I began to notice some concerning patterns. My family became increasingly demanding about the accommodations and activities. Ashley asked if I could upgrade her flight to first class because she gets anxious in economy. Mark wanted to know if his suite had a separate living area and private balcony. My mother inquired about premium spa packages and private yoga sessions. The family group chat that had once been buzzing with excitement grew strangely quiet whenever I asked questions or sought opinions about planned activities. I would post ideas for group excursions and receive no responses, only to later see my siblings discussing separate plans that did not seem to include me. 2 weeks before the trip, Ashley called me privately with an unusual request. She wanted to bring 2 of her friends along on the vacation. When I gently explained that this was meant to be a family trip and that adding 2 more people would significantly increase the cost, she became cold and distant. "I thought you wanted us to enjoy ourselves," she said before, abruptly ending the call. I felt terrible, even though I knew my boundary was reasonable. The worst moment came when I accidentally overheard a phone conversation between Mark and our parents. I had called my father to confirm some details about their airport pickup, but he had answered without realizing and continued his conversation with Mark. "Jesus has plenty of money," my father said. "Let him handle all of it. That is what he wants anyway." Mark laughed and added, "Might as well take advantage while we can." My heart sank, but I convinced myself I had misinterpreted their words. The morning we arrived in Hawaii was picture perfect. The sky was a brilliant blue, palm trees swayed in the gentle breeze, and the ocean sparkled invitingly in the distance. Our shuttle from the airport pulled up to the resort entrance, where staff greeted us with fresh flower leaves and cold fruit drinks. Everyone seemed genuinely happy and excited as we checked in and explored the magnificent property. I had spared no expense on the accommodations. For my parents, I booked a deluxe ocean view suite with a separate living area and a massive balcony overlooking the beach. Mark and Julia received a similar suite on the floor above with upgraded bath amenities and a private hot tub. Ashley and Frank got the 3rd ocean view suite, which included complimentary daily breakfast and evening cocktails. For myself, I had reserved a standard garden view room, comfortable but modest compared to the others. Our first evening together was everything I had hoped for. We gathered for dinner at the resort main restaurant, where we enjoyed fresh seafood and tropical cocktails while watching the sunset. Everyone was talking, laughing, and taking photos together. My mother hugged me tightly and whispered, "Thank you for bringing us all together like this." For those few hours, I felt truly connected to my family in a way I had not experienced in years. The next morning, however, things began to change. I went to meet everyone for breakfast as planned, only to find that Mark and Julia had already eaten and left for a golf lesson. No problem, I thought, we can catch up later. I enjoyed a nice meal with my parents, Ashley and Frank, though I noticed they seemed distracted, constantly checking their phones under the table. After breakfast, I returned to my room to grab my swimming gear, planning to join everyone at the pool. That was when I discovered the first truly troubling development. The resort had called to confirm a room upgrade for Mark and Julia, which had been charged to my account without my knowledge or consent. They had used my name at the front desk to authorize an additional $800 for a premium oceanfront suite with butler service. When I called Mark to ask about it, he seemed annoyed by my concern. "We thought you wanted us to have the best experience possible," he said dismissively. "It is just money, Jesus. You have plenty of it." That afternoon, my phone buzzed with a notification. I assumed it was from our family group chat, but instead I saw a message from Mark to a group titled Hawaii Fam Know Jesus. He had accidentally added me to a separate chat that included everyone in my family except me. Before I could read any messages, I was quickly removed from the group, but that brief glimpse was enough to realize they had been making plans without me. The pattern continued the next day. I woke up at 8 a.m., excited for our planned breakfast together, only to find everyone gone. When I texted to ask where they were, Ashley replied an hour later. "Oh, we decided to get an early start. We are already on our way to a snorkeling tour. Catch you later." They had not bothered to wake me or even leave a note. I tried to shake off my disappointment and enjoy the resort amenities on my own. While swimming in the infinity pool, I overheard a resort employee confirming details for a private island tour booked under my last name for the following day. Again, no one had mentioned this to me. When I checked the itinerary later, I noticed my name was conspicuously absent from the participant list. That evening I had to make my own dinner reservation after discovering the family had already eaten together hours earlier. As I sat alone at a table for one, I caught the sympathetic glance of our server, who clearly recognized me as the odd man out from the family group she had served earlier. The humiliation burned deep. When I returned to my room, I found my suitcase and personal items had been moved. A note from my mother explained they had relocated me to a smaller room down the hall because Dad needed more space to recover from his jet lag. My father had never mentioned any issues with jet lag or discomfort. They had simply decided my accommodations could be downgraded to improve theirs. Over the next 2 days, I made several attempts to participate in family activities. I tried joining them for a beach volleyball game, but Mark claimed they already had even teams. I offered to treat everyone to a sunset cruise, but was told they were too tired that evening, only to later see photos of them at a luau, posted in the group chat I was no longer part of. I suggested a hiking excursion to a nearby waterfall, but Ashley said it would not really be your thing, Jesus. In a last-ditch effort to salvage some family connection, I arranged a private beachside barbecue dinner with personal chefs and live music, sending formal invitations to everyone. My parents showed up 30 minutes late, ate quickly, made excuses about feeling tired, and left before the main course was served. My siblings never appeared at all. That night, unable to sleep, I walked along the beach and accidentally overheard Ashley and Frank talking on their balcony directly above me. "I feel a little bad for Jesus," Ashley was saying. "He seems so desperate for attention." Frank laughed. "He is so boring, though. All he talks about is his job and his savings plan. At least his money is more interesting than he is." "We just need to humor him for a few more days," Ashley replied. "He is always good for a loan when we get back home." Their words cut through me like a knife. In that moment, I realized I had been nothing more than a financial resource to them all along. Not a brother, not a son, just a wallet with legs. The next evening, I passed by the resort bar and spotted Mark, Julia, and my parents sharing drinks. They had not invited me, of course. I was about to walk away when I heard my name mentioned. "Jesus is such a penny pincher," Mark was saying. "Did you see how he flinched when I mentioned the room upgrade cost? The guy makes 6 figures but acts like $800 is going to break him," my mother chimed in. "Well, he has always been that way. Remember how he would count his birthday money as a child and never share with you kids," Julia added. "And he keeps bringing up how much this trip cost him. If you are going to be generous, do it without keeping score." I stood frozen in disbelief. I had never once mentioned the cost of the trip to any of them after booking it. In fact, I had gone out of my way to insist that all extra expenses be charged to my room so no one would have to worry about money during our vacation. The final straw came when I overheard Frank telling a resort employee, "Just charge it all to Jesus' room. He is the rich tech guy paying for everything. We just have to keep him happy enough to keep the gravy train running." The morning of the 5th day coincided with my 34th birthday. No one in my family had mentioned it, not even with a text message. I woke up early hoping against hope that perhaps they had planned a surprise breakfast or activity. Instead, I found a brief text from Ashley. We all decided to take the helicopter island tour today. Did not wake you since you mentioned not liking heights. We will be gone all day. Maybe see you for dinner if we are not too tired. I had never mentioned any fear of heights. In fact, a helicopter tour had been on my personal wish list for the trip. I checked my email and discovered a receipt for $3,000 charged to my credit card for the premium family helicopter experience for 5 people. They had not only excluded me from a tour I would have loved, but they had charged it to my card without permission. Curious about what else they might have charged without my knowledge, I contacted the resort billing department. The list was staggering. Spa treatments for my mother and Julia totaling over $1,000. Golf lessons and premium club rentals for my father and Mark. A private shopping excursion with personal stylist for Ashley and Frank. Numerous room service orders with expensive wine and champagne. Additional excursions and activities booked for the upcoming days. In total, they had racked up over $7,000 in unauthorized charges on top of the $15,000. I had already paid for the trip. I called Mark trying to keep my voice calm. When he finally answered, he sounded annoyed at the interruption to his helicopter tour. "What is going on with all these charges?" I asked. "What charges?" he replied innocently. "The helicopter tour, the spa treatments, the golf lessons. None of you asked me before charging thousands to my card." There was a pause then. Mark laughed dismissively. "Jesus, you invited us on this vacation. When someone invites you on a trip, they pay for everything. That is how it works. Stop being so cheap." "That is not how it works," I replied, my anger rising. "And why was I not included in the helicopter tour? It is my birthday today. It must have slipped our minds. Anyway, you mentioned not liking heights. I never said that. You just made that up as an excuse to exclude me." Mark sighed heavily. "Look, we are just trying to enjoy ourselves. Maybe if you were a bit more fun to be around, we would include you more. Anyway, I have to go. The pilot is giving us the safety briefing." He hung up before I could respond. I sat on the edge of my bed, hands shaking with a mixture of hurt and rage. It was in that moment that something inside me snapped. The lifetime of being used, taken for granted, and manipulated crashed down on me all at once. I had been financing their lives, their comforts, their emergencies for years, and this was how they repaid me, by stealing from me and mocking me behind my back. I made a decision then and there. I would no longer be their personal ATM. I would no longer chase their affection with my wallet open. I would take back control of this vacation and my life. My first call was to the resort manager. I explained the situation calmly and professionally, showing evidence that I was the only authorized payer on the reservation and that the additional charges had been made without my consent. To my surprise, the manager was incredibly understanding and sympathetic. "Unfortunately, Mr. Jesus, this happens more often than you might think," she said. "Family dynamics on vacation can get complicated. What would you like us to do?" I made several requests. First, I asked that all future charges from my family members be declined, unless specifically authorized by me in person with ID verification. Second, I requested that all upcoming tours and activities booked under my name without my knowledge be canceled. Third, I asked if it would be possible to upgrade my room to the presidential suite for the remainder of my stay, ensuring my family no longer had access to it. The manager agreed to all my requests, even offering a discount on the presidential suite upgrade as compensation for the trouble. Within an hour, I had moved my belongings to a stunning 2-bedroom suite, with panoramic ocean views, a private plunge pool, and dedicated butler service. My next call was to my credit card company. I explained the situation and disputed all unauthorized charges, providing copies of receipts and details about who had actually used the services. They immediately began the process of reversing the charges and issued me a new card number to prevent any further unauthorized use. With the practical matters handled, I composed a brief message to the family group chat. I have become aware of the unauthorized charges and exclusionary behavior during this trip. I have moved to different accommodations and have canceled all pending reservations. I will no longer be financing any part of your vacation. You are welcome to stay the remaining days, but you will need to cover your own expenses from this point forward. I have paid enough both financially and emotionally." The response was immediate and chaotic. My phone exploded with individual messages and calls which I ignored. Mark sent angry texts accusing me of being petty and selfish. Ashley alternated between guilt trips and insincere apologies. My mother called 17 times in a row. My father sent a message saying I was overreacting and needed to man up and take care of the family. Later that afternoon, the resort security called to inform me that my family members were causing a scene at the front desk after being denied access to their rooms due to unpaid charges. They had also been informed that their scheduled activities for the following day had been canceled. I instructed the staff to allow them back into their rooms for one night to collect their belongings, but that they would need to either pay their own way or check out the following day. That evening, I received an angry visit from Mark at my new suite. The butler tried to turn him away, but I agreed to speak with him briefly. He stormed in red-faced and indignant. "You cannot do this to us," he shouted. "We are your family. Family does not treat each other the way you have treated me." I replied calmly. "Family does not exclude, mock, or steal from each other. We never stole from you," he protested weakly. "You offered to pay for this trip. I offered to pay for the rooms and some basic expenses. I did not offer to pay for helicopter tours that excluded me on my own birthday." Mark changed tactics. "Look, maybe things got a little out of hand, but you cannot just abandon us here. Julia and I cannot afford these room rates on our own. You seem to afford upgrading your room without consulting me. Perhaps you can downgrade now without consulting me as well." "This is ridiculous," Mark snapped. "I will talk to a lawyer about this. You cannot invite someone on vacation and then strand them." "Feel free to consult a lawyer," I said, opening the door to show him out. "I have all the receipts, unauthorized charges, and even screenshots of your little secret group chat. I would be happy to show a judge how my generosity was repaid." His face paled at the mention of the secret chat. Without another word, he stormed out. I closed the door behind him, feeling a strange mixture of sadness and relief. With my family drama behind me, I found myself with 3 days left in paradise and a newfound sense of freedom. For the first time in years, I had no one to please but myself. No expectations to meet. No emotional manipulation to navigate. No financial demands to satisfy. I began by doing all the things I had actually wanted to do in Hawaii but had set aside to accommodate my family preferences. I took surfing lessons from a local instructor named Kai, who patiently helped me progress from embarrassing wipeouts to successfully riding my first wave. The feeling of gliding across the water powered by nothing but the ocean itself was exhilarating. I joined a small group hiking tour to the summit of a nearby mountain where we watched the sunrise paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. The other hikers were friendly and inclusive, asking about my experiences in Hawaii and sharing their own stories without any ulterior motives. One evening I encountered a group of travelers having a beachside barbecue. When they saw me walking alone, they waved me over and invited me to join them. There was no obligation, no expectation, just simple human kindness. We shared food, drinks, and stories until late in the night. They did not know about my job, my income, or my family drama. They simply enjoyed my company for who I was, not what I could provide. Through these new friends, I met Sophia, a marine biologist who led ecological tours of the island. She was passionate, intelligent, and genuinely interested in my thoughts and experiences. We connected immediately, spending hours discussing everything from technology to marine conservation. When she learned I was from Seattle, she mentioned she had been considering a research position at an oceanic institute there. For the first time in years, I felt seen and appreciated for who I was, not what I could offer. Meanwhile, my family situation had resolved itself in predictable fashion. Rather than pay their own way for the remaining days, they had checked out of the resort and booked a cheaper hotel nearby. They continued to send manipulative messages, alternating between anger and attempts to reconcile, all transparently aimed at regaining access to my wallet. On my last day in Hawaii, I ran into them at a public beach. They approached me cautiously, their expressions a mix of lingering resentment and forced contrition. My mother spoke first, her voice softer than usual. "Jesus, we may have gotten carried away with the expenses," she admitted. "We did not realize how upset you would be." My father added, "We just thought since you make so much money you would not mind treating your family to some extras." Ashley chimed in, "We are really sorry you felt left out. We just thought you would be bored with some of the activities." Their apologies were telling in their phrasing. They were sorry I felt hurt, not sorry for their actions. They were sorry I felt excluded, not sorry they had deliberately excluded me. There was no genuine acknowledgement of the real issue. I responded calmly, maintaining my composure. "I did not bring you all here to be my guests or my financial dependents. I brought you here hoping to reconnect as a family. I was willing to pay for that opportunity, but not to be treated as an ATM with legs." "That is not fair," Mark protested. "We appreciate everything you do for us. You appreciate what I provide, not who I am." I corrected him, and that is the problem. Moving forward, our relationship will need to change. I will no longer be financing your lifestyles or emergencies. I will no longer try to buy your attention or affection. Ashley looked panicked. "But what about the loan we discussed for our home renovation?" "That is exactly what I am talking about," I said, shaking my head. "Your first concern is losing access to my money, not losing your relationship with me." I left them standing there on the beach, their expressions a mix of shock, anger, and the dawning realization that their gravy train had reached the end of its tracks. Returning to Seattle, I felt lighter than I had in years. The burden of constantly trying to purchase my family affection had been lifted. I immersed myself in building genuine connections with people who valued me for myself. I joined a local mountain climbing club where shared challenges created authentic bonds. I volunteered my IT skills at a nonprofit teaching computer literacy to underprivileged youth. With the money I was no longer sending to my family, I accelerated my savings and finally purchased the home I had been dreaming of, a cozy cabin-style house, near enough to the city for work, but surrounded by nature for peace. The family fallout played out predictably. My parents and siblings cycled through anger bargaining and reluctant acceptance as they realized my boundary was firm. Ashley and Frank struggled the most, having grown dependent on my financial assistance. Mark and Julia, to my surprise, were the first to attempt a genuine reconciliation, though I maintained healthy distance and skepticism about their motives. 2 months after the Hawaii trip, I received a message from Sophia. She had accepted the research position in Seattle and wanted to meet for coffee. That coffee date turned into dinner, which turned into hiking trips and museum visits. Unlike my family connections, this relationship was built on mutual respect, shared interests, and genuine care. The most valuable lesson I learned from that disastrous family vacation was that real relationships cannot be purchased. Love and respect must be freely given and received. Sometimes the hardest but healthiest thing you can do is to stop trying to buy affection from people who only value you for your resources. I have no regrets about cutting my family off financially. It forced us all to confront the transactional nature our relationship had devolved into. Some of those relationships may never recover, and I have made peace with that possibility. Others might evolve into healthier connections based on genuine care rather than financial dependence. That Hawaii trip cost me $15,000 but saved me from a lifetime of emotional manipulation and financial exploitation. It was the most expensive and yet most valuable lesson I have ever learned about what family truly means. True family, whether blood-related or chosen, sees you for who you are, not what you can provide. They lift you up rather than drain you dry. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? I would love to hear your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, your worth is not measured by what you give, but by who you are. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you the courage to define your own boundaries and find your authentic connections.